The Greedy Python by Carle. Half hidden in the jungle green, the biggest snake that there has been looped back and forth and in between. The giant snake was very strong and very, very, very long. He had a big, huge appetite, his belly stretched from left to right. He quickly gobbled in one bite all animals that came in sight, a mouse that hurried to and fro, a frog that jumped up from below, a bat that hung from his left toe, a fish that swam a bit too slow, a bird that flew a bit too low, a porcupine still half asleep, a monkey who was in mid-leap, a leopard sitting in a tree, a buffalo who came to see. An elephant complete with trunk was swallowed in a single chunk. "I am too big for you," he cried. "No, you are not," the snake replied. At last the python's meal was done, and he lay resting in the sun. The animals inside of him began to jump and fly and swim. And when they all began to kick, the snake began to feel quite sick. He coughed the whole lot up again, each one of them, and there were 10. He soon felt better. What is more, he was hungrier than before. He had not learned a single thing. His greed was quite astonishing. He saw his own tail long and curved, and thought that lunch was being served. He closed his jaws on his own rear, then swallowed hard and disappeared. Snake's Diary by Little Yellow, written by Clarke. January. On a beautiful morning not very long ago, I hatched from my egg. My brother Reed and my sister Rose hatched on the same day. Reed and Rose are red and long. I am yellow and short. My name is Little Yellow. February. When I was born, I was 6 inches long. Today, Dad measured me, and I have grown. Dad says I will grow as long as he is. I really want to be as long as everyone else in my family. March. Something amazing is happening. My eyes have turned blue because my skin is starting to shed. Mom says that one day I will turn green just like her. I really want my new skin to be green. April. Today I raced Reed and Rose to the top of the tree. I won. Dad says being short and yellow must make me fast. I really like being the fastest. May. My eyes turned blue again, and I shed my whole skin in one day. Yippee! I am still yellow. Bah! Mom says yellow is beautiful, just like her yellow belly. I really love it when Mom makes me feel better. June. I have been sneaking up on tree frogs. I hide in the leaves and scare them. Dad says being short and yellow is good for hiding. I really like scaring frogs. July. I have shed again. I am still yellow, and I have not grown since June. Reed and Rose have started turning green. They say that I will always be little and yellow. I feel sad when Rose and Reed tease me. August. I am doing stretching exercises every day. Dad says that it's working because I have grown a lot. I feel really long now. September. I have shed again, and I am still yellow, but I have grown. Mom says she thinks she can see a little bit of green on my forehead. I think I will be yellow forever. October. I have been hanging around eating and growing a lot. Reed and Rose say that curling on a tree branch is fun. I really like hanging out with Reed and Rose. November. I have shed again, and guess what? Finally, I am green. My family says that I look great. I think I look amazing. December. I love being big and green. Now I am long like everyone in my family. Even though I am big and green, I will always be little yellow. Verdi by Janell Cannon. On a small tropical island, the sun rose high above the steamy jungle. A mother python was sending her hatchlings out into the forest the way all mother pythons do. Grow up big and green as the tree's leaves, she called to her little yellow babies as they happily scattered among the trees. But Verdi dawdled. He was proudly eyeing his bright yellow skin. He especially liked the bold stripes that zigzagged down his back. Why the hurry to grow up big and green? He wondered. Maybe some of the older snakes in the jungle could tell him. Verdi ventured into the treetops to look for them. Umbos, Aggie, and Ribbon were lazing on some branches nearby. Verdi peered at their droopy green bodies. It's not polite to stare, chided Aggie. Umbos burped and groaned. It's taken nearly 4 weeks for that last lizard to digest. I surely do like lizards, but lizards don't like me. Why don't lizards like you? Asked Verdi. Don't interrupt, Umbos grumbled. Dear me, whined Aggie, if I don't shed soon, this itchy skin will drive me bananas. Verdi tapped a tune with his tail as he waited to speak. Stop that, Verdi. It makes me nervous, Ribbon complained. Besides, you'll never grow up to be properly green, always interrupting and constantly fidgeting. Verdi couldn't imagine being in such a hurry to be like them. And he really wanted to keep his sporty stripes. Hoping to find snakes that weren't so boring, Verdi slipped away. Dozer was snoring in a tree not far from the others. Hello, said Verdi. Do you want to climb trees with me? I'm tired, Dozer growled. Go do a few laps around the jungle, okay? Verdi's heart sank. Greens were not only lazy and boring, they were rude. At the top of a very tall tree, Verdi gripped one branch with his tail and another with his little snake jaws. I will never be lazy, boring, or green, he thought. I will jump and climb and keep moving so fast that I will stay yellow and striped forever. Then Verdi let go. From a distance, the greens watched. Oh my, they chorused. Ribbon shook his head. At this rate, he'll be lucky to make it to his first molt. Aggie nodded. He's likely to put an eye out on a branch, Umbles moaned. He may not live to turn green. But one day Verdi's skin began to peel, revealing a pale green stripe stretching along his whole body. Cack, he gasped. How can this be? I'm the speediest snake in the jungle, and I'm still turning green? He raced down to the river, grabbing up a mouthful of rough leaves. Verdi flung himself into the water. If I can't run this green off, I'll scrub it off, he thought. His frantic splashing caught the eye of a large bottom feeder cruising the murky depths. Yum, the old fish hummed, lunch. Before the fish could haul Verdi under, the frightened snake bit him on the nose. Ah, pooh! With a blast of his rubbery lips, the great fish sneezed, sending Verdi into the air. Slapping onto the soggy shore, Verdi skipped out of reach. Phew, that was close, he sputtered. Every inch of his body was covered with wet, gloppy mud. Kind of lumpy, kind of brown. It sure beats being green. He left the mud on. But the soft brown muck dried into a hard gray shell, and Verdi could barely move. If he even budged, the stuff cracked off in jagged chunks. As each piece fell away, Verdi could see that his body was even greener than before. This is terrible, cried Verdi. He pictured himself hanging around in droopy loops, itching and complaining and worrying all day, like the old greens. He looked up into the sky where the sun blazed a beautiful yellow, just the color he used to be. Then he pulled a vine to the top of a tree. Launching himself from the treetop, Verdi startled a flock of colorful birds. He became dizzy with delight, sure the bright sun and his lofty speed would turn him golden again. In his joy, Verdi forgot he would fall back to earth. Whippity, whappity, whip, whap, wham, plummeting through the trees, Verdi landed in a crooked sprawl across a log on the forest floor. He couldn't move. Help, he croaked. As usual, the greens had been watching Verdi's antics. They moved quickly to where he lay. Didn't we say it would come to this? Umbles said, shaking his head. Aggie sighed. Lucky thing he's still got two good eyes. They gently lifted Verdi up to a safer place, where they could watch over him while he healed. Neatly splinted to a branch, Verdi had no choice but to listen to the greens as they gabbed. Remember how I used to streak across the forest floor? Ribbon asked. Quick as lightning, answered Aggie, and I climbed giant trees like they were nothing. They grew taller then, you know. The things I dared to run down and swallow, Umbles bragged. Wild boar were no match for me. Verdi was astonished. You used to run and climb and hunt giant pigs. What happened? Ribbon crashed. Just like you, Eggy replied. I took a terrible fall and almost put an eye out. Then old Umbles here nearly choked to death. Now we all prefer the quiet life, a warm perch, a little sunshine, and an occasional good meal. The Greens rambled on about their days of glory, and Verdi settled in on his branch. Finally, one afternoon, Umbles said, Looks like you are ready to go again. He carefully untied Verdi from the branch. You are welcome to come with us, said Eggy. Ribbon agreed. The three Greens slipped quietly back into the forest. Verdi wasn't ready to join them. He wasn't sure where he wanted to go, so he just stretched and stayed put until the sun went down. He listened to the forest come alive. Time passed. The sun and moon took turns in the sky. Verdi marveled as the full moon grew thinner every night. Then he watched patiently as it slowly grew round again. He wondered why he hadn't noticed that before. Verdi became so green that he blended perfectly with the leaves. He was so still that other creatures walked right by without seeing him. One fine morning, as Verdi basked in the sunshine, two small yellow snakes approached. They tapped and fidgeted as they stared. Get a load of that old green guy, one of them whispered. Do you think he ever moves? The other snickered. I seriously doubt it. They're just like I used to be, thought Verdi, and I'm now what I was afraid to be. He looked at his big green body and slowly smiled. How would you like to climb trees with me? He asked. With you, the yellows were astonished. I'll even show you my fancy figure eight, Verdi replied, though he was a little worried about putting his eye out. With practice, the three snakes performed a perfect triple figure eight, leaping and looping with his little striped friends. Verdi laughed. I may be big and very green, but I'm still me. Baby Rattlesnake by Tay Atta and Lynn Maroney. Baby Rattlesnake cries for his own rattle, but his parents say he is too young. His crying keeps the rattlesnake people up all night. Out in the place where the rattlesnakes lived, there was a little baby rattlesnake who cried all the time because he did not have a rattle. He said to his mother and father, I don't know why I don't have a rattle. I'm made just like my brother and sister. How can I be a rattlesnake if I don't have a rattle? Mother and Father Rattlesnake said, You are too young to have a rattle. When you get to be as old as your brother and sister, you will have a rattle too. But baby Rattlesnake did not want to wait, so he just cried and cried. He shook his tail, and when he couldn't hear a rattle sound, he cried even louder. Mother and Father said, Shh, shh, shh. Brother and sister said, Shh, shh, shh. But baby Rattlesnake wouldn't stop crying. He kept the rattlesnake people awake all night. The next morning, the rattlesnake people called a big council. They talked and they talked just like people do, but they couldn't decide how to make that little baby rattlesnake happy. He didn't want anything else but a rattle. At last, one of the elders said, Go ahead, give him a rattle. He's just too young and he'll get into trouble, but let him learn a lesson. I just want to get some sleep. So they gave baby Rattlesnake a rattle. Baby Rattlesnake loved his rattle. He shook his tail, and for the first time he heard ch-ch-ch, ch-ch-ch. He was so excited. He sang a rattle song, ch-ch-ch, ch-ch-ch. He danced a rattle dance, ch-ch-ch, ch-ch-ch. Soon baby Rattlesnake learned to play tricks with his rattle. He hid in the rocks, and when small animals came by, he darted out rattling, ch-ch-ch, ch-ch-ch. He made old Jack Rabbit jump. He made old man Turtle jump. He made Prairie Dog jump. Each time baby Rattlesnake laughed and laughed. He thought it was fun to scare the animal people. Mother and Father warned baby Rattlesnake, You must not use your rattle in such a way. Big Brother and Big Sister said, You are not being careful with your rattle. The rattlesnake people told baby Rattlesnake to stop acting so foolish with his rattle. Baby Rattlesnake did not listen. One day baby Rattlesnake said to his mother and father, How will I know a chief's daughter when I see her? Well, she's usually very beautiful and walks with her head held high, said Father. And she's very neat in her dress, added Mother. Why do you want to know? Asked Father. Because I want to scare her, said baby Rattlesnake. And he started off down the path before his mother and father could warn him never to do a thing like that. The little fellow reached the place where the Indians traveled. He curled himself up on a log and he started rattling, ch-ch-ch. He was having a wonderful time. All of a sudden he saw a beautiful maiden coming toward him from a long way off. She walked with her head held high, and she was very neat in her dress. Ah, thought baby Rattlesnake, she must be the chief's daughter. Baby Rattlesnake hid in the rocks. He was excited. This was going to be his best trick. He waited and waited. The chief's daughter came closer and closer. When she was in just the right spot, he darted out of the rocks. Ch-ch-ch-ch-ch-ch. Ho! Cried the chief's daughter. She whirled around, stepping on baby Rattlesnake's rattle and crushing it to pieces. Baby Rattlesnake looked at his beautiful rattle, scattered all over the trail. He didn't know what to do. He took off for home as fast as he could. With great sobs he told Mother and Father what had happened. They wiped his tears and gave him big rattlesnake hugs. For the rest of that day, baby Rattlesnake stayed safe and snug close by his rattlesnake family.